Apple TV Ultra sounds like a small box, but this could be the product that finally changes what Apple TV is supposed to be. Not just a streaming device, not just another black box under the TV. This time, Apple might be aiming at something bigger, a living room machine for gaming, Apple Intelligence, smart home control, movies, and the whole Apple ecosystem. And the interesting part is, Apple does not need to start from zero. A-series power, metal graphics, Apple Arcade, controller support, AirPods, iPhone Sync, tvOS, and now Apple Intelligence, the pieces are already there. The missing thing is one serious product that connects all of it. That is why Apple TV Ultra matters. Apple TV Pro can be the normal upgrade. Faster chip, better Siri, better gaming, cleaner tvOS, good for most people. But Ultra is different. Ultra has to be the model that makes people stop and say, wait, Apple is actually serious about gaming on TV now. Because if Apple brings two models in 2026, Pro and Ultra, the Pro cannot be the whole story. The Ultra has to be the headline, the one with more power, more graphics, more storage, better cooling, stronger AI performance, and a real reason to exist. Not just a higher price, not just a new name, a real difference you can feel from the couch. The first thing Apple TV Ultra needs is the chip, because gaming on a TV does not forgive weak hardware. Streaming apps are easy. Menus are easy. Even 4K movies are not the real challenge anymore. The real challenge is games. Better lighting, sharper textures, fast loading, stable frame rates, low controller delay, big worlds. No random slowdown after 20 minutes. That is where a 17 Pro, a 18 Pro, or a 19 level chip changes the conversation. Because once Apple puts a serious Pro-class chip inside Apple TV, this box stops feeling like a streaming product and starts feeling like a mini console. And this part is important. A stronger chip is not just for opening Netflix faster. Nobody is buying Ultra just so the home screen feels 1 second quicker. The real reason is graphics, ray tracing, metal FX upscaling, better shadows, better reflections, cleaner motion, higher frame rates, games that look like they belong on a big TV, not just copied from a phone. That is the difference people will notice. A racing game with real reflections. A sports game that feels smoother. An action game with better lighting. A game that loads fast enough that you do not pick up your phone while waiting. That is what Apple TV Ultra has to deliver. But chip power alone will not save it. Apple has already had strong chips for years. The problem is focus. Apple TV has never felt like gaming is the main event. It feels like streaming first apps, second gaming somewhere in the corner. Ultra has to flip that. Not for everyone, but for the people who buy the expensive model. tvOS on Apple TV Ultra needs a real gaming space. Your games, your controller battery, your cloud saves, your recent sessions, your friends, your performance mode, your graphics mode, your Apple Arcade titles, your App Store games, everything in one clean place, not scattered, not hidden, not feeling like an afterthought. And Apple already started moving in this direction with the new Games app idea across its platforms. That matters because Apple's gaming strength is not one device. It is the connection between devices. iPhone in your pocket, iPad in your bag, Mac on your desk, Apple TV under the screen, AirPods in your ears, controller in your hand. One Apple account holding it together. That is the ecosystem play. And if Apple TV Ultra gets this right, it could become the easiest gaming setup Apple has ever made. No giant console, no gaming PC, no big power brick, no messy setup. Just Apple TV Ultra, a controller, and the games you already own or subscribe to. But here is the problem. The game library has to be there. Apple Arcade is clean. No ads, no coin traps, no messy in-app purchase pressure every 5 seconds. For families, that is strong. But Ultra cannot survive on casual games alone. If Apple wants people to take Apple TV Ultra seriously, it needs bigger games. Controller-first games, console-style games, games that make sense on a 55-inch or 65-inch screen. Not just mobile games made bigger, real living room games. That is where Apple has to prove itself. Because PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo, and PC already own that space in people's minds. Apple cannot just walk in with Ultra branding and expect gamers to believe it. The games have to prove it. The performance has to prove it. The controller feel has to prove it. And this is where cooling becomes more important than people think. A small box can be powerful for a few minutes. That is easy. The hard part is staying powerful. 1 hour into a game, 2 hours into a game, a long racing session, a sports match, a big open world title. If Apple TV Ultra gets hot and slows down, people will notice. If the frame rate drops, people will notice. If the box feels limited by its size, people will notice. So Ultra needs better thermal design, maybe a larger body, maybe smarter airflow, maybe a quieter cooling system. Whatever Apple chooses, the point is simple. Ultra cannot just be fast. It has to stay fast. That is what makes it different from the Pro model. Pro can be the clean upgrade. Ultra has to be the performance model. More GPU power, more memory, more storage, better cooling, better wireless, and stronger support for Apple Intelligence. Now, Apple Intelligence is where this gets even more interesting. Because on Apple TV, AI cannot be the same as on iPhone. Nobody wants to sit on the couch and rewrite an email on the TV. That is not the use case. Apple Intelligence on Apple TV Ultra has to be about the living room. Smarter Siri, better search, better recommendations, sports highlights, movie questions, game settings, smart home control, family profiles, voice commands that actually understand context. That is where AI becomes useful. Think about this. You are holding a controller and you say, open the game I played last night. Or switch to performance mode. Or find the movie with the airport fight scene. Or show me the actor in this scene. Or make dialogue louder. Or turn off the lights and start the movie. That is the kind of Apple Intelligence that makes sense on a TV. Not flashy. Not fake. Just useful. And if Apple connects it with Siri properly, Ultra could feel much smarter than the current TV experience. Because the TV is still one of the worst places to type. Typing with a remote is slow. Searching across apps is annoying. Finding what you watched last week can be irritating. A smarter Siri could fix that, but only if it actually works. That is the big risk. If Siri is slow, if it misunderstands, if it only works in Apple apps, if it gives weak answers, people will stop using it fast. The TV is a shared screen. When AI fails on your phone, only you see it. When AI fails on the TV, everyone in the room sees it. So Apple has to make Apple Intelligence on Apple TV ultra fast, private, and reliable. No awkward demos, no half-working features, no confusing setup, and privacy matters even more here. A TV is not personal like a phone. It belongs to the whole house. Parents, kids, guests, everyone. So profiles have to be smart. Recommendations have to stay separate. Voice commands have to understand who is speaking. Smart home controls need protection. And if any camera or FaceTime feature comes into the picture, Apple has to make the privacy controls very clear. That is why Apple TV Ultra could become more than a gaming box. It could become the serious smart home hub Apple has been missing. Thread support, better wireless, Wi-Fi 7, Bluetooth 6, N1 chip rumors. These are not exciting words for a thumbnail, but in real life, they matter. Because the living room box is always plugged in, always connected, always sitting in the center of the home. That makes it perfect for smart home control. Lights, cameras, locks, speaker, thermostats, sensors, everything needs a stable hub. And Apple TV Ultra could be the premium version of that hub. This is where Ultra gets a second purpose. Gaming machine by night, smart home brain all day, entertainment hub all the time. That is a much stronger story than just new Apple TV is faster. Now, what would make Ultra feel new compared with Pro? The Pro model could get the basic upgrades, stronger chip, Apple Intelligence support, better Siri, better gaming, better wireless. But Ultra needs the extra layer, more storage for big games, a stronger GPU for higher frame rates, better cooling for longer gaming sessions, more memory for future AI and multitasking, a more premium remote, maybe better controller bundle support, maybe stronger FaceTime and camera features, maybe a dedicated Ultra gaming mode. That is what makes the product feel different. Not just one more storage option, a real performance tier. And if Apple wants to make the Ultra name believable, it should not hide the gaming part. It should show it directly. Show a game loading fast. Show ray tracing. Show AirPods spatial audio. Show a controller connected instantly. Show iPhone handing off a game to the TV. Show Siri changing settings without touching menus. Show Apple Intelligence helping you find exactly what you want. That is how people understand the upgrade, not by reading specs, by seeing the difference. But there is another problem Apple has to solve. Price. Apple TV is already more expensive than cheap streaming sticks. And most people already have apps built into their smart TV. So Ultra cannot be priced like a normal streaming box. It has to justify itself like a serious device. If it costs more, people will ask, why not buy a console? Why not use the TV apps? Why not keep the old Apple TV? Why not use a cheaper box? Apple needs a clear answer. The answer cannot be only streaming. That is not enough anymore. The answer has to be gaming, AI, smart home, premium performance, Apple ecosystem, and long-term support all in one device. That is the Ultra pitch. Still, Apple has to be honest with what this product is. It should not pretend to replace every console. That would create the wrong fight. Apple TV Ultra should be sold as something different. A quieter, smaller, simpler living room gaming and AI box for Apple users. Not the most powerful gaming device in the world. The most Apple-style gaming device in the living room. That is a better angle. Because Apple wins when the experience feels smooth. Not when it chases every spec war. And that is why the Ultra model could be important. It gives Apple a chance to separate casual users from serious users. Pro for people who want a better Apple TV. Ultra for people who want Apple TV to become the center of the living room. Movies, games, Apple Intelligence, smart home, music, sport FaceTime, AirPods, controller support, iPhone connection, all in one box. That is the big idea. But the final test is simple. Will people actually use the Ultra features? Because Apple can add AI. Apple can add a faster chip. Apple can add a gaming mode. Apple can add more storage. But if people still only open YouTube and Netflix, then Ultra becomes overkill. So Apple needs features people feel every day. Faster search, cleaner recommendations, better voice control, real games, better controller setup, smarter profiles, useful smart home controls, no lag, no heat issues, no confusing menus. That is what makes Ultra worth it. The best version of Apple TV Ultra is not just a spec monster. It is a box that removes friction. You sit down, the controller connects, the game opens, AirPods switch, the TV goes into the right mode. Your save is there. Siri understands you, the lights, everything works. That is the Apple version of gaming. Not loud, not messy, not complicated, just smooth. And if Apple really brings a Pro and Ultra Apple TV lineup in 2026, Ultra has to be the one that makes the headline. Not because it is bigger, not because the name sounds cool, because it finally gives Apple TV a purpose beyond streaming. For years, Apple TV has been good but quiet, premium but not exciting, useful but not really a product people argue about. Apple TV Ultra could change that. It could make Apple TV feel like a serious part of Apple's future again. But Apple has to get 4 things right. The chip has to be strong, the cooling has to hold up, the games have to be real, and Apple Intelligence has to be useful on a TV, not just copied from iPhone. If any of those fail, Ultra will feel like hype. But if Apple gets them right, this could be the first Apple TV in years that people actually want to upgrade for. Not because their old ones stopped working. Not because the remote got better. Not because streaming apps need more power. Because Apple TV Ultra could become something new. A small living room machine for gaming, AI, entertainment, and the smart home. And that is the real story. Apple TV Pro may be the safe upgrade. But Apple TV Ultra is the one that could change the whole identity of Apple TV. Streaming box is not enough anymore. If Apple is going Ultra, it has to feel Ultra from the couch.